What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the Callisto Protocol's difficulty. And I had talked about how I wanted to do this video, but only after I actually got to play it, right? When the reviews came out, there was a lot of talk around and the reviews came out, I guess, as people were playing this game, right? The reviews for this game were very late. And a big talk about the specific, like, minute-to-minute things you're going to be doing in this game. Combat came up very, often. And the dodge mechanic came up very often, and it was definitely a divide. And whenever you have critics, especially when just the common folk, right, us common folks here, we can't play it, we're only hearing what these people are saying, there's going to be a divide of us of whether we believe them or don't believe them. And, I tried to make this pretty clear in my review of the game, too. I'll get to how I feel about the combat in a second, in case you guys didn't watch my review. But it's tough with these game journalists because, to not kid around, some of them are just very not good at games. They're actually kind of awful. And difficulty, quote unquote, could literally just mean they're not able to do it, but 99% of the population is. When you have people going around that can't play Doom Eternal, or, you can come up with many examples of game journalists that have no idea what they're doing. So, when you're told about combat, and you're told from people that historically, or at least in the last 10 or so years, are pretty bad and probably shouldn't even be in the gaming industry, then it's like, all right, well, are the mechanics broken? Is the game actually having issues? Or is it honestly like a get good kind of argument? And of course, that has its controversy all on its own, right? Because then there's easy mode and there's all this other kind of stuff that people can bring up. But generally, right, it's, well, is it just a challenge? Is it something that you just have to kind of get good at and you'll understand it and it'll kind of all click? Or is something actually wrong with the game? Okay, so that was the lead up to this entire thing, and I had said, well, I wanted to play it to kind of figure it out. And I also mean this, I want to throw this out there. I'm making this video primarily to see what other people have to say, because I'm just one voice. I actually saw it in my review, a pretty good split. And I think that is, kind of catching up to right now, when people have played the game, people know it better. There is definitely a split. I don't know if it's 50-50, but there is a split of people that do think it's just something you kind of have to work yourself into, and once you figure it out, it's not too bad. Then there's some people that are just very furious with it and don't like it at all. Like, there really is a split. So part of why I wanted to make this video and title it as such is I want to see what people say. Like, I want to see what's the percentage in the comments of that divide. So again, if you guys didn't watch my review of it, I talked about it there, but I'm going to talk about it again. My opinion on it is I don't really mind the combat. I actually think it's kind of clever, and I do think it's something that you have to kind of work yourself into. However, I do think the game mechanics are a little off, and I'll explain what I mean in a second. But when I bring up dodging, right, why do I bring up dodging? Well, when you think about the combat in this game, dodging is primarily the thing you're going to be doing. I don't know if it's even possible to beat this game without dodging. The enemies, I just feel like, are going to gang up on you. Like, I'm trying to think, could you go through this game or like speed run it or stealth your way through it? Is there a way of getting through this game without actually having to dodge? I find it very, impossible, actually, because when you think about like some of the bosses or the harder enemies that are kind of one-hit kills, I guess you have to keep them at a massive distance. If you don't keep them at a massive distance, you're going to have to dodge. Otherwise, you will die immediately, and there's no way around it. So I have to imagine dodging is going to be required, in this game. So how I think of it is the combat or the dodging takes an extremely long time to get used to. I will say that. And if you want to say that's a game negative, like that's not the game's strength, that's totally fine. I kind of debate it myself, because when I think about it, it's like, all right, well, by the end of it, or even let's say in the middle, or 2/3 of the way, whenever, I did feel pretty okay. Like, I was absolutely dodging more than I was being hit from general enemies. And then once you understand the bosses, which really, what I kind of like about the bosses, the one-hit kill ones, you can dodge in either direction and you're gonna be fine, right? So at least that's how I approached it. I managed to do it. Maybe glitches, or maybe that literally is the game mechanic. I really don't think the dodging is as big of a deal, and and again, I think you get used to it by around like the halfway point of the game. I would say the issue where this game kind of falls down is with the camera. So there's like a shaky cam-ish thing going on when, like, you're whacking the enemies with your baton, but also the game gets confused, I would say, when enemies are popping up in different directions. So I mentioned this in my review. One thing I noticed when I was playing the game is sometimes the enemies will be very cool with the fact that you'll attack only one. So when you're attacking one enemy, another enemy will actually be very respectful of you and say, oh, I won't mess with you, but also sometimes that doesn't happen, and sometimes they'll attack you at very inconvenient times and kind of ruin everything. Also, something I realized, or again noticed in my review, is it's harder. It is, I think, just factually harder. Your brain gets it twisted a little bit more when an enemy is not attacking you from the front. So again, if you're attacking an enemy and then somebody comes kind of from one of your sides or even behind you to like one of your diagonals, it is very difficult to dodge them, because again, with a normal enemy, right? Enemies that don't take too much to bring them down, but the ones that you don't know, you have to dodge either left or right, and those ones you have to dodge the right way, right? If you dodge the wrong way, you're gonna get hit. That's where this game, I would say, becomes a problem, where the camera doesn't track it very well, or enemies will be respectful in one moment and then they really won't be respectful the next moment. That's where I think the game takes some big hits. Also, like, just general unfairness, I would say. I noticed multiple times, Jacob, your character, he would make the motion of dodging for me. Like, he would literally do the body movement of dodging, and he would still be hit, and he would still die. And I also brought up the mutations, right? Those kind of like tentacle-y things that come out of the enemies, and you have to shoot them like immediately, otherwise they're gonna grow into, very formidable opponents that are gonna really hurt you. You're gonna lose a lot of ammo, all that stuff. Well, again, I don't think the game mechanic works all that well when you seemingly have everything under control with one enemy. The mutation thing, kind of pops up. You have to shoot it, but then you get attacked by another enemy where you have to dodge them or get hit. But either way, that time that you wasted by dodging or even taking the hit, you won't be shooting. And so that enemy will mutate. It is pretty unfair, I would say, when that happens. And that happens multiple times, I would say, throughout this game. So, these are throwing out some examples, just kind of giving you a general feel of what I think about it. I really want to hear from you guys in the comments, because I overall think this is a game that is very challenging. I do think it feels rewarding when you get it. I think the bosses in particular actually aren't that bad. It's just a lot of ammo that you're using in these enemies, right? But I really don't think they're all that bad, because the dodging is pretty, not forgiving, but I do think it's easier to dodge the big enemies than just like the average Joes, like down a hallway or something. But then I do think there are things in this game that make it kind of unfair, and those mechanics. So it's actually odd. Like, reading the reviews again, it's tough to decipher, again, if game journalists are just bad, or is the game itself broken? Is the dodging broken? I actually don't really think the dodging mechanic itself, when you lean left or right, I don't actually really think it's broken at all. I think it's fine. I think it is a huge learning curve to it. I think actually the issues with the combat and with, the game unfair, quote unquote, or whatever, that actually comes from the other stuff that this game does, not necessarily from the dodging mechanics. So definitely want to hear from you guys in the comments. Let me know. Do you think the game's too hard? Do you think it's, just right? People have to get good. Let me know. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, so you know when all these videos go up. I hope to see you all on the next one.